Okay, all students are present. I will start with the lecture. Please, all of you, mute yourself so that I can start without any disturbance. Okay, then. Yesterday, we had seen about the duties of medical practitioner in case of suspected poisoning. Before that, we had seen what are the factors modifying action of poison. So, still till the time till today, we are just going sequence in a sequence. First, we have seen introduction to toxicology, then classification of the poisons, then how the poison will enter the body, different ways or different routes of poison to enter into the body, then action of the poison, whether it is local, whether it is remote, whether it is local and remote and general, that all we have seen in detail. Then factors modifying action of the poison. What are different factors like dose, dose, age, then route of administration, because the one poison, if it has been administered in one route, it will act differently, and the poison which has been administered in another route, the same poison which has been administered in another route will act completely differently. So we have seen so many factors which will modify the action of the poison, like dose of the poison, form of the poison, whether it is physical, in which physical state it is, whether it is in a gaseous state, fluid state or in solid state, then certain chemical combinations of the poisons, we have seen non-poisonous and poisonous combinations, then different methods of administration, and lastly, yesterday we had seen about duties of a doctor in case of suspected poisoning. So whenever any case of poisoning or suspected case of poisoning will come to you, what care should be taken, when to inform the police, and how you should start with the treatment and all, everything we have seen yesterday in detail. uh, what care should be taken by the doctor. Now, very important chapter, always again very commonly asked as a 20-mark long question, general treatment of poisoning. So whenever any patient will come to you with poisoning, or any patient has been brought to you with a suspected poisoning, how you will immediately start with the treatment. If the poison is known, if you exactly know the nature of the poison, means that person himself has told what he has consumed, or attend, if the patient is not able to talk, maybe unconscious or something. So if the relatives or attendant of the patient tell that which poison that person has consumed, or which poison he is exposed to, if you know the exact nature of the poison, you can immediately start with the specific treatment. Specific treatment directed towards the poison and the clinical features developed because of the poison by that particular substance. So treatment should be in should follow these four criterion, these five criteria, these 5 points should be followed in the treatment of any case of poisoning. So first is removal of unabsorbed poison. So first aim of our treatment, will be to remove the unabsorbed poison from the body. So whatever the poison that has not yet been absorbed in the body, that should be removed. That how it is to be removed, we will see one by one. Then use of antidotes. If the poison has already been absorbed in the body, what antidote you can administer to neutralize, what is antidote, so to neutralize the poisonous effect of that particular substance. Thirdly, elimination of absorbed poison. If the poison has already been absorbed, by the time patient comes to the hospital, the poison has been absorbed into the body, into the system, how it is to be excreted, how it should be eliminated from the body. Then treatment of general symptoms. Now, irrespective of the nature of the poison, whatever the general symptoms are there, it may be shock, it may be severe dehydration, or whatever the general symptoms they have been developed because of the poisoning, the general treatment should be treated accordingly, and maintaining the general condition of the patient, including his psychiatric condition, mental condition also. So that we'll see one by one. So these 5 points you will have to study in detail, and you have to keep in mind while dealing with any patient of poison. Now these last two lines are also very important. Over treatment with large doses of antidotes, stimulants or sedatives can cause more damage. Means just we have seen use of the antidote. Second point is use of the antidote, but it can happen that the dose of the antidote given is so large, or may not be even large, but the action of the antidote is so severe that the patient will not die because of the poison, but because of the treatment or because of the antidote. That's why this last line is very important. Over treatment with large doses of antidotes, stimulants or sedatives will cause damage to the patient, or it can even kill the patient. That's why the drugs used for such purposes should be used rationally or judiciously. So use of such drugs should be judicious, not causing harm to the patient. So over treatment with the antidotes and stimulants. So if the patient is in a state of drowsiness or depressant action of any poison is there, what you will do, you will give some stimulant drugs. So these stimulants can harm the patient. Then exactly opposite to that, if the patient is very rowdy or patient is having convulsions, patient is very much excited because of the action of the poison on the nervous system, on the higher centers, patient is very much excited, running violently here and there, is very violent and difficult to control, or simple patient is having convulsions. So in the treatment of convulsions, what will have to give? We'll have to give sedatives that will calm down the patient. So if these sedatives are given in very large dose, what will happen? The patient can go into coma, patient can die because of the action of the sedative. So like this, these antidotes, stimulants or sedatives, whatever have been given for the treatment of the patient, they should be used rationally or judiciously, taking care of the overall health of the patient. Now, just remember these 5 points. We will start with the first: removal of unabsorbed poison from the system. If the patient has been brought to the hospital, by the time the poison is not yet absorbed in the system, large amount of poison has been accumulated at the at the point of entry. Means if it is inhaled, it will be accumulated somewhere in the respiratory tract. If it is ingested into the gastrointestinal, it has entered the gastrointestinal tract, the good amount of poison may be still present in the stomach, which later on can be absorbed. So this unabsorbed poison, or the poison that is lying on the skin, if it has been rubbed on the skin or it is direct contact with the skin, eyes or any other mucosa, how it should be washed and how it is to be removed, that we will see one by one. So the poison which has not yet been absorbed in the system, that is unabsorbed poison, should be removed so that the further severe action of the poison and signs and symptoms can be prevented. So first thing we will see about the inhaled poison, the poisons which have been inhaled. Inhaled means the poisons have entered through respiratory tract, like we have seen the examples of asphyxiant poisons like carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, sewer gas, war gas. So many dangerous gases are there. So if any person has been exposed to such dangerous gases and these poisons have entered into the respiratory tract, the patient should be removed to the fresh air. The patient should be removed to the fresh air so that the further exposure to that particular gas will be prevented, and patient will be able to inhale more and more amount of fresh air with oxygen. Then airway should be clear. The airway should be clear. There should not be any obstruction in the respiratory tract. And in emergency cases, in severe cases, you may even need artificial respiration, maybe in the form of ventilators. So if the respiratory system is not at all working, patient is not able to breathe, you can go for artificial respiration. Then next is injected. If the poison has been injected, if the poison has been given in the form of injection, tourniquet should be applied. What is by tourniquet? It is a tight bandage applied proximal to the point of injection. So for example, if the snake has bitten, if the snake has bitten on the fingers, where will you apply the tourniquet? We will apply the tourniquet on the forearm or on the arm, so that the poison injected by the snake bite of the snake, poisonous snake bite, will not move to the rest of the body. So that is tourniquet, applying the tourniquet or tied bandages. Then incision and suction, you can go for incision. Now this is the old method, no one follows it now, no one advises it also. So incision and suction at the site of injection, you can go for multiple incision at the site of injection, so that that unabsorbed poison will come out with the blood, and its spread to the rest of the body will be prevented. Then third is contact poisons. If the poison has come in contact with directly in contact with the certain parts of the body, like skin, if it has been sprayed or sprinkled on the body and is direct in contact with the skin, eyes, wound, open wound, vagina, rectum or bladder, you should wash that part with plenty of plain warm water. You should wash that part with the plenty of plain warm water. And if the specific antidote to that particular poison is known, you can apply it locally. So the specific antidote can be applied locally if you know the exact nature of the poison and what is the antidote to that particular poison, so that locally that poison will be neutralized or deactivated by the action of antidote. So 3, inhaled. We have seen first one, inhaled. The patient should be removed to the fresh air so that subsequent inhalation of the poison should be prevented. Clear airway should be ensured and artificial respiration can be given in dangerous conditions where the patient is not able to breathe properly. Then in case of injected poisons, you can go for tourniquet, applying the tight bandages so that the flow of the poison or along with the circulating blood, the flow of the poison will be prevented to spread to go to the rest of the body. And the contact poisons, they should be the part which has come in contact with the poison should be washed with plenty of plain warm water, and if specific antidote is known, that can be applied. Then fourth one, very important, is ingested poison. If the poison has been taken orally, if the poison has been swallowed, it happens the stomach takes some time, stomach and upper GIT takes some time for the absorption of the poison because it needs to be dissolved, it needs to be you can say its action with the digestive juices and all. If it is in solid form, it will take some time to be dissolved, and some time will be required for the this dissolving and absorption of the poison. So some amount of poison will be left unabsorbed in the stomach for varying period of time. For some poisons that period may be very short, and for some poisons that period may be very long. So by that time you can go for this removal of the poison. So there are two methods, there are two ways by which the poison can be removed from the stomach. Unabsorbed poison from the stomach can be taken out. First is vomiting. Induce the vomiting, make the patient to vomit so that whatever the poison that has been left unabsorbed in the stomach, that will be vomited out. And second is stomach wash, that is washing the stomach from by putting the tube. The process is called as gastric lavage. It is asked as a 5-mark short note. Gastric lavage is asked as a 5-mark short note. So removal of unabsorbed poison in case of ingested poison, it is having two processes. Vomiting, inducing the vomiting so that unabsorbed poison will be vomited out, and second is stomach wash. We will see in detail. So if the poison has been taken by mouth, if the poison has been taken by mouth, the vomiting is the early stage. Vomiting in the early stage is very important. You just make the patient to vomit so that unabsorbed poison will be thrown out of the body. If the patient is conscious, if the patient is conscious and cooperative, if the patient is conscious and cooperative, induce the vomiting by tickling the fauces, means just touching the soft palate. घशात बोट घालणे. So when tickling the fauces, just tickling the soft palate with the finger will induce the vomiting, or by giving the emetics. You can go for what do you mean by emetics? The substances which induce the vomiting. ऐसी चीजें जिनकी वजह से पेशेंट को वोमिटिंग होती है, they are called as emetics. So you can go for the emetics. Now very important point is contraindications of emetics. It is asked as a 2-mark question. It is commonly asked as a 2-mark question. Now you cannot give each and every, the patient who has swallowed the poison, the poison has been ingested. In all the cases of ingested poison, you cannot go for emetics, that is inducing the vomiting. You cannot go for development of vomiting in all the cases of poisoning. There are certain exceptions, or what we call it as contraindications, in which cases you cannot go for induction of vomiting. First is corrosives, because what happens in corrosives? Corrosives means strong acids and strong alkalis. If any patient has swallowed strong acid, the acid will burn and cause corrosions and erosions on his tongue, mouth, pharynx, esophagus, stomach, everything has been corroded, and again asking the patient to vomit, it will cause further damage to the patient. That's why in case of corrosives, vomiting should not be induced. Strychnine poisoning. Now the main important clinical feature of strychnine poisoning is convulsions. Patient is having severe convulsions, and if the patient is having convulsions, the treatment in strychnine or nux vomica. Strychnine is the active principle of nux vomica. So in nux vomica poisoning, if the patient is having convulsions, you cannot go for induction of vomiting in case of nux vomica poisoning, because when you will try to stimulate the vomiting center, when you will try to induce the vomiting, what will happen? Patient will have convulsions. so it can worsen the case. So in any patient who is having convulsions, vomiting should not be given. Next is petroleum. Petroleum, like volatile poisons. In short, volatile poisons. What will happen in volatile poison? When the patient will try to vomit, these volatile poisons or petroleum, their fumes or their few drops can enter the respiratory tract. There is chances of inhalation, what we call it as aspiration. The patient may get aspirated and it will cause respiratory complications. So in case of petroleum and volatile poisons, emetics should not be given, or vomiting should not be done. Vomiting should not be stimulated. And lastly, coma. If the patient is unconscious. In case of unconscious patient, you cannot induce the vomiting. Again, same problem. In unconscious patient, the vomitus can get inhaled into the respiratory tract. It can enter the respiratory tract and patient can die because of obstruction to the respiration. So these are the four important contraindications. Four important contraindications of emetics asked as a 2-mark question. Corrosives, where the stomach, esophagus and all, they have been badly burned. There are so many ulcerations and even perforation of the stomach and esophagus. Poisoning in which the patient is having convulsions. I have mentioned the example Nux vomica poison or strychnine poisoning, the poison where there are convulsions. Then petroleum or volatile poisons, where these poisonous substances can enter the respiratory tract. And lastly, coma, unconscious patient. You cannot induce vomiting in case of unconscious patient because keep quiet, mute yourself. Who is making noise? Okay, coma, where the patient is unconscious, you cannot go for vomiting because vomitus can be inhaled into, or it can enter the respiratory tract and patient can get aspirated and can die because of the aspiration. Got the contraindications? Now see common household emetics. Again, this is repeatedly asked, repeatedly, very commonly asked 2-mark question. Common household emetics, the name only tells you, means ऐसी कौन सी चीजें हमारे घर में होती है which are used to induce the vomiting, जो हम आसानी से अवेलेबल कर सकते हैं. किसी आदमी ने कुछ तो पॉइजनस सब्सटेंस खा लिया है या गलती से उसके पेट में गया है, तो वो बाहर निकालने के लिए हमें वोमिटिंग इंड्यूस करना है. तो वोमिटिंग, हाउ विल यू इंड्यूस द वोमिटिंग? By means immediately before shifting the patient to the hospital as a immediate treatment, how to induce the vomiting? By giving certain common household emetics which are easily available at home. So these common household emetics are very simple. Draft of warm water, पेशेंट को गर्म पानी पीने देना है. गर्म पानी पीने देगा, क्या होगा? पेशेंट तुरंत वोमिटिंग कर देगा. गर्म पानी ज्यादा पिएगा, तुरंत वोमिटिंग करेगा. सेकेंडली, टी स्पून ऑफ मस्टर्ड पाउडर. मस्टर्ड, मस्टर्ड पाउडर, मोहरी. मोहरी हिंदी में क्या बोलते हैं उसको? राई ना, राई समथिंग. सो टेबल स्पून फुल ऑफ मस्टर्ड पाउडर. मस्टर्ड पाउडर भी अगर पानी में लेते हैं या वैसे भी अगर swallow करता है कोई, immediately vomiting will occur. So you can give a tablespoonful of mustard powder to swallow. The patient will immediately vomit. Okay, all are back. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? All are back. Okay, I will continue. Some people, when I had posted that message of today's lecture at something around, I think 2:15, 2:30, two or three students immediately joined after I have mentioned the time in that. Timing of my lecture is 3. One or two students immediately joined at 2:30 something. So don't do that. What happens? The meeting ends very early because of that. Don't make noise, all of you. Please mute yourself. किसका mic चालू है रे? Who is there? Please mute yourself. Okay, so we will see the common household emetics. So common household emetics are draft of cold water, tablespoonful of mustard powder, 2 tablespoonful of common salt in 200 ml. This is the easiest way. 2 चम्मच कॉमन सॉल्ट अपना सोडियम क्लोराइड, नमक लेना है, 1 गिलास भर पानी में डालना है और वो पीने देना है। गिला नमक का पानी पिएगा क्या होगा? तुरंत उल्टी हो जाएगी। सो दैट इज द इंड्यूसिंग द वोमिटिंग बाय गिविंग कॉमन सॉल्ट इन वाटर। 1 गिलास भर के पानी में 2 चम्मच नमक डालना है, दैट विल इंड्यूस द वोमिटिंग। जस्ट गिव दैट salt water to the patient, he will immediately vomit. Then 1 to 2 grams of ammonium carbonate. Ammonium carbonate given in the water will also induce the vomiting. Now you can go for the medicines. If the patient is admitted in the hospital and still there is some amount of poison is present in the stomach, you can go for medicines like apomorphine. Apomorphine is the medicine which is having selective action on vomiting center. It is having selective action on vomiting center. How it is to be given? 6 milligrams subcutaneously. It is to be given 6 milligrams subcutaneously, means into the skin. It is to be given below the skin, followed by naloxone hydrochloride. Because why naloxone is to be given? Because this subcutaneous injection of apomorphine. This injection of apomorphine causes narcosis. It causes the narcosis, the drowsiness and sleepiness. To overcome this effect of this side effect of apomorphine of narcosis, this naloxone hydrochloride is to be given intravenously or even intramuscularly. This apomorphine 6 milligram subcutaneous injection when given, it produces the vomiting within 3 to 5 minutes. The patient will immediately vomit within 3 to 5 minutes. Then it also advantages of apomorphine, it also facilitates the gastric lavage by removing the gastric contents, and it produces the reflux of upper intestinal contents into the stomach, means upper jejunum and duodenum. If some poison has been if some poison has passed down to the duodenum and upper part of jejunum, that will also undergo contraction, and it will push those contents of upper part of jejunum, upper few coils of jejunum and duodenum into the stomach, and that will also be vomited out, and it will also assist in washing the stomach. So this is about vomiting. So vomiting in early stage is very important because it will help to throw the unabsorbed poison out of the body from stomach in the form of vomiting. Common household emetics are draught of warm water, tablespoon of mustard powder, 2 tablespoon common salt in 200 ml, that is 1 glass of water, and 1 to 2 grams of ammonium carbonate dissolved in the water. These substances, when available, and they are easily available at anyone's home, they can be given for inducing the vomiting. And apomorphine in the hospital, when the patient reaches the hospital in time, you can go for apomorphine to be given subcutaneously. Then second important point in removing the unabsorbed poison from stomach. Who is making noise? Please mute yourself. Please don't make noise. Okay, gastric lavage. Another method of removing the Another method of removing the unabsorbed poison from the stomach is gastric lavage, or also called as stomach wash. It is a life-saving procedure. It is a life-saving procedure if given within 3 to 6 hours after ingestion of the poison. So if any patient has swallowed the poison, uh, that poison, unabsorbed poison from the stomach can be removed within 4 to 6 hours by the time it gets absorbed into the stomach. So within 4 to 6 hours if it is given, it is a life saving procedure, because large amount of poison will be taken out before its absorption and circulation into the body. Now what are the contraindications? Just like emetics, this gastric lavage or stomach wash is also having same contraindications. Corrosives, if the patient has swallowed corrosive poisons or strong acids and alkalis, where the stomach and esophagus has been badly burnt, corroded and ulcerated, or even perforated, you cannot perform gastric lavage. Strychnine poisoning or Nux poison, where the induction of vomiting or the process of gastric lavage can induce the convulsions, the coma, unconscious patient. You cannot put the tube into the stomach in case of unconscious patient. And petroleum in case of volatile poisons. These poisons can enter, or their fumes can enter the respiratory tract, causing respiratory complications or even death of the patient. Now, we will see in detail about the process of gastric lavage or how it is to be performed. So, procedure: make the patient to sleep in prone or semi-prone position on one side with hips higher than head. Matlab, sir, head end is to be slightly lower. Head end slightly lower than the hips. सो प्रोन और सेमी प्रोन पोजीशन ऑन वन साइड, एक साइड पे सुलाना है पेशेंट को, एक साइड को, या तो राइट या लेफ्ट. सो मेक द पेशेंट टू स्लीप ऑन वन साइड विथ हिप्स हायर देन द हेड. सर की बाजू थोड़ी सी नीचे रहेगी और लेग एंड विल बी स्लाइटली अबव. Then this is for better respiratory drainage. Then mouth gag with central hole to prevent the rubber tube being beaten. Mouth gag, so जो भी ट्यूब रहेगी उस ट्यूब में फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल यू विल हैव टू पुट अ माउथ गैग. माउथ गैग मालूम है ना, वो मुंह में डालते हैं जिससे टंग नीचे दब जाती है और उसको बीचों बीच में एक होल रहता है जिसके बीच में से वो स्टमक ट्यूब अंदर डालनी है. बट what is the advantage of this mouth gag? So when the patient will try to close the mouth, that tube will pass through that mouth gag and it will not be bitten. वो दांतों में दबेगी नहीं वो ट्यूब. So वो होल में से, वो जो माउथ गैग रहता है उसके होल में से वो ट्यूब अंदर जाएगी and the rubber tube will be prevented from getting bitten. Now stomach tube, I'll just tell you some details of stomach tube. Stomach tube is 12.7 millimeters in external diameter. काफी मोटी रहती है, करीबन हमारी उंगली जितनी मोटी रहती है वो. And it is 1.5 meters long. It should pass without kinking. Kinking मतलब अंदर ढकेलते वक्त, मुंह से, फेरिंग से, इसोफेगस से अंदर जाते वक्त वो फोल्ड नहीं होनी चाहिए. इट शुड पास विदाउट किंकिंग और विदाउट फोल्डिंग. एंड देयर इज फनेल एंड. फनेल एंड, वो एक एंड नीचे स्टमक में जाएगा, वो नली का एक एंड वो नीचे स्टमक में जाएगा और बाहर, मुंह से बाहर जो एंड रहेगा, इट इज हैविंग फनेल अटैच्ड टू द अपर और आउटर एंड. and lower end is blunt. It is not sharp, it is blunt and rounded. Why? Because while passing through the throat, while passing through the pharynx, through the esophagus and on reaching the stomach, it should not cause trauma. It should not cause trauma to the mucosa, to the delicate mucosa of pharynx, esophagus and stomach. That's why lower end is blunt and rounded. And important thing, there are many openings on the sides of the lower end. तो हम ऊपर से जो भी उसमें पानी डालने वाले हैं स्टमक वॉश के लिए, वो स्टमक में जाना चाहिए ना, इसलिए उसके नीचे वाले एंड में को बहुत सारे ओपनिंग्स रहेंगे. सो देयर आर ओपनिंग्स ऑन द साइड्स ऑफ द लोअर एंड. and distance between lips and cardiac end of the stomach is 45 centimeters. So by that judgment you will have to push the tube into the stomach. Now you have pushed the tube, you have, patient is in a semi prone position, lying on one side and with head end slightly lower. You have put the mouth gag, you have put the tube through the hole, the central hole of the mouth gag into the mouth of the patient, into the pharynx and esophagus. But you should know that the tube is in the GI tract only, in the esophagus and stomach only, because it can happen that the tube can enter the respiratory tract. The tube can enter the larynx and even into the trachea. That's why that care should be taken. You should be very sure that the tube has entered the stomach only. So how will you come to know the tube is in the stomach or not? So if the air bubbles come through the tube, if the air comes through the tube, there will be bubbling sounds through the stethoscope on the stomach. If the tube enters the gastrointestinal tract, the tube has entered the stomach, there will be bubbling sounds through the stethoscope on stomach. So you have passed the tube. What you will have to do? You just apply the stethoscope over the stomach area on the left side of the upper left side of the abdomen. On the stomach area, you will have to put the stethoscope and push some air with the syringe attached to the outer end of the tube. ट्यूब का जो बाहर बाहर का एंड रहेगा ऊपर फनेल वाला, वो फनेल निकाल के तुम उसे सिरिंज अटैच करो, उसमें से थोड़ा सा एयर पुश करो. So when the bubbling sounds will be there on the with the help of stethoscope, that means your tube is in the stomach. Then another thing, reflex cuffing, because when the tube will touch the larynx, if the tube happens to enter the respiratory tract, if the tube enters the respiratory tract or in the trachea below, what will happen? The patient will have reflex coughing. So if the patient coughs, the tube is in the respiratory tract. Another thing, hissing sounds or bubbles of air when the funnel end is kept in the water. Another test you can conduct after putting the tube inside. You just hold the outer funnel end, which is from outside the mouth. The outer funnel end of the tube is to be held in the small container containing water. So if there is bubbling, if the bubbles are coming out of the tube, that means your tube is not in the gastrointestinal tract, it is in the respiratory tract. That's why that air from the respiratory tract is coming out through the tube and it is creating the bubbles in the water. So bubbles of air when will be found on the funnel end of this tube, that means your tube is in the respiratory tract. So you will have to take it out, you will have to take it back and again insert it. So you should be very sure that your tube, the tube you have passed into the through the stomach, patient's mouth, is present in the stomach only. That test you will have to do, either putting the stethoscope on the stomach region or and pushing some air, or putting the outer upper end of the funnel end of the tube in the bowl containing water. Now actual procedure, when you are very sure that the tube is present in the stomach only, the tube has entered the stomach only, how will you perform the process? So half liter of plain water, half liter of plain warm water, warm means close to body temperature, not too hot or not too cold, the warm water just like body temperature, is to be poured into the funnel which is held above the level of patient's mouth. The patient is lying down position, तो उसके मुंह से थोड़ा सा ऊपर पकड़ना है, वो बाहर का जो एंड है ट्यूब का, that is to be hold slightly upwards, फनेल थोड़ा सा ऊपर पकड़ना है और उसमें आधा लीटर पानी डालना है, आधा लीटर plain water is to be put into that and allow the water to go into the stomach. Then just let it to be there for a few seconds and then the funnel end is to be lower down below the level of the stomach. उसमें पानी डालते वक्त स्टमक के लेवल के ऊपर पकड़ना है, so that by the gravity the water will go into the stomach and after some time, after a few seconds, just lower down and take it below the level of the stomach. So because of gravity, all the contents of the stomach and that water will come out. So first wash should be sent for chemical analysis. तो फर्स्ट वॉश में सबसे ज़्यादा पॉइजन आएगा ना, the first wash will contain maximum amount of poison. That's why the first wash is to be preserved and it is to be sent for chemical analysis for detection of the poison. This process of washing the stomach is to be repeated either with warm water, or if you know the exact nature of the poison, if you know the exact nature of poison, you can add antidote, the fluid containing antidote, and that antidote can be left inside. It can also be poured into the stomach through that funnel end via tube into the stomach if you know the exact antidote. So process is to be repeated either with plain warm water or fluid containing the antidote. You can use 10 liters of fluid, you can use 10 liters of fluid for the complete lavage. That means half liter every time, means half liter every with every wash, means how much amount, how many times you are going to perform the stomach wash? 20 times. This process, that is pouring the water into the funnel and allowing it to come out, pouring the water into the funnel and allowing to go into the stomach and again allowing it to come out. Like this you will have to perform this process of washing the stomach 20 times till all the unabsorbed poison from the stomach has been removed. And if you are using the potassium permanganate, now previously potassium permanganate was very commonly used. Each and every case of poisoning, let the poison be known or unknown, potassium permanganate used to be used as an antidote and for washing the stomach. So if the potassium permanganate is used as antidote, the returning fluid will turn the pink, and if it turns the pink, that means the poison is neutralized by the chemical reaction between that poison and potassium permanganate. So potassium permanganate, if it is used, its change in the color will give you good idea whether the poison has been neutralized or not. And in some cases of poisoning, you can leave uh, some amount of antidote can be left in the stomach. So you have performed 15-16 times you have performed the stomach wash, and then you can leave some amount of antidote into the stomach uh, to react and to neutralize the remaining amount of poison in the stomach. So the commonly used antidotes are magnesium sulfate, sodium bicarbonate, and activated charcoal. Activated charcoal is a mechanical poison or physical antidote. It is a physical antidote that will just physically cover the alkaloids and will prevent their further action. And liquid paraffin will act as a demulcent. Paraffin is very sticky. It is very sticky. So it will demulcent means it will create the coating on the interior of the stomach, on the gastric mucosa. So this liquid paraffin will create a coating. It will adhere to the gastric mucosa. That's why that poison will not be able to enter the mucosa. It will not be able to enter or will not be absorbed through the gastric mucosa. So liquid paraffin will act as a demulcent. uh, then before stomach tube is withdrawn, now you have performed it maybe 16-20 times, you have washed the stomach, and now you are taking out the tube, you are taking out the stomach tube. So before taking out the stomach tube, it should be pinched. इट शुड बी पिंच्ड, मतलब उसे बाहर निकालते वक्त उसे ऐसा फोल्ड करके दबा के रखना है, सो दैट उसमें जो भी मटेरियल बचा है, पानी वानी जो भी मटेरियल बचा होगा, वो बाहर निकालते वक्त रेस्पिरेटरी ट्रैक में ना चला जाए, तो वो नीचे जाएगा ना ग्रेविटी की वजह से. सो बिफोर stomach tube is withdrawn, it should be pinched to prevent the aspiration or entry of any of the content left in the tube into the lungs. So that is very important while withdrawing the tube. So this is the first point in general treatment of poisoning, that is removal of unabsorbed poison. Removal of unabsorbed poison, if it is inhaled, if it is injected, if it has come in direct contact with the parts of the body, or it is ingested, and we have seen the removal of ingested poison, removal of unabsorbed ingested poison. It can be taken out by vomiting or by gastric lavage. Gastric lavage or stomach wash, I just explained you the procedure of gastric lavage. Now we will see use of antidotes. Again very important, antidotes are asked as a 5-mark short note. So antidotes, again it is asked as a 5-mark short note, and when the general treatment is asked, you will have to write all these things in detail. So we will see antidotes in detail. Antidote is a separate short note, and there are also 2-mark questions are also there in the antidote only. I will tell you as we will come across that. So antidotes, the name, you might have heard this name so many times, which will neutralize the action of the poison, which will minimize the action of the poison. So antidotes are the substances which will counteract the effect of poison. Poison may not have been completely removed by vomiting or gastric lavage. If the poison has not been removed by stomach wash or vomiting, you will have to go for antidotes. और if the poison has already been absorbed, मतलब पेशेंट हॉस्पिटल आते आते लेट हो गया, पेशेंट हॉस्पिटल आते आते पूरा पॉइजन एब्सॉर्ब हो चुका है बॉडी में, देयर इज नो पॉइंट इन गिविंग इन गैस्ट्रिक लवाज और वोमिटिंग एंड ऑल, you will have to go for administration of antidotes. Then poison taken by some other route than injection. अभी समझो इंजेक्शन से दिया है, by any route the poison has entered the body, So there is no point in giving gastric lavage. So either through injection, inhalation, by any means the poison has entered the body, or maybe by direct contact with the open wound or mucosa, and large amount of poison has been absorbed, you will have to go for antidote. So if the poison has not been removed completely by vomiting or lavage, if the poison has already been absorbed by the body, and the poison which has been taken by some other route than ingestion, where you cannot go for vomiting or lavage, there is no point in giving vomiting or inducing vomiting or giving gastric lavage. So you will have to go for antidotes. So what are the different types of antidotes? Mechanical or physical antidote. First type of antidote is mechanical or physical antidotes. So antidotes, these mechanical or physical antidotes will reduce the absorption of the poison only by their presence. The example is, I explained you demulcents. So demulcents will create the coating on gastric mucosa. They will create the coating on the interior of the stomach. That's why the poison will not come in direct contact in the gastric mucosa, and that's why it will not be absorbed. So examples of demulcents are, demulcent is asked as a 2-mark question, and demulcents are asked as a 2-mark question. Fats, oils, milk, egg, albumin, they will create the coating. They will create the coating on the interior of the stomach. Then bulky food. Bulky foods which will cover the poisonous substance. Bulky foods will cover the poisonous substance. Means in case of glass powder, I just give you example. अगर किसी ने glass powder swallow किया है, तो we will give that person to eat banana. तो क्या होगा? Banana will cover those glass particles, and its traumatic effect like cuts and abrasions on the gastric mucosa will be prevented. So banana will cover the glass powder from all the sides and prevent the damage to the stomach. Then charcoal, again very important antidote. Charcoal will absorb the alkaloidal poisons, and these all substances like demulcents and mechanical or physical antidotes are indicated, or they are required when the gastric lavage is contraindicated. We have seen some of the conditions when the gastric lavage is contraindicated, like unconscious patient, volatile poisons, petroleum poisons, or corrosives, or convulsions, in case of convulsions. So in these cases, when you cannot go for induction of vomiting or you cannot go for gastric lavage, you will have to go for these demulcents or any of the substances which will reduce the absorption of poison only because of their mechanical presence, or only because of their physical action. And these demulcents or these mechanical or physical antidotes are having no role, they are having no role when the poison has already been absorbed. अगर पहले से ही poison absorb हो चुका है stomach में से, there is no point in giving these substances which reduce the absorption of the poison. Now we will see second group of antidotes is chemical antidotes. The name only tells you these chemical antidotes will have chemical reaction with the poison. These chemical antidotes will have chemical reaction with the poison, so that non-toxic compounds will be created. They will be less harmful. So non-toxic compounds are formed because of the chemical reaction with the poison and the antidote, and these insoluble compounds are oxidized material which have been toxic materials which have been oxidized to form non-toxic constituents. They can be taken out by gastric lavage. So I give you examples: magnesium oxide or calcium oxide. What they are? Magnesium oxide or calcium oxide, they will neutralize the acid. They are alkalis. They will neutralize the acid. Then lime for oxalic acid. Then magnesium sulfate for carbolic acid. And iron oxide for arsenic. If the patient has swallowed arsenic, you can put the iron oxide into the stomach. This iron oxide will react with the arsenic to form non-toxic or less toxic compounds of the arsenic. Then tannin for alkaloids. Potassium permanganate is an oxidizing agent. As told you, in gastric lavage, it is very commonly used. Potassium permanganate is very commonly used for stomach wash, because it is an oxidizing agent that reacts with the organic substances like alkaloids, barbiturates, phosphorus, cyanide, so many poisons. If the patient has taken sleeping pills, barbiturates, in large dose, you can go for gastric lavage, provided the patient has not yet slept. If patient is conscious or awake. How the solution of potassium permanganate sorry how the potassium solution of potassium permanganate is prepared. 1 to 100 part, 1 to 1000 part, 1 to 1000 part, that is 1 gram of potassium permanganate. Potassium permanganate, I think many of you might have seen, potassium permanganate comes like वो बड़ा वाला नमक रहता है ना, क्या बोलते हैं उसको, खड़े से मीठ, बड़े वाले नमक के क्यूब्स रहते हैं, दैट इम्प्योर सॉल्ट, वैसे ही पोटेशियम परमैंगनेट के भी क्यूब्स आते हैं, ऐसे अलग अलग शेप के, इरेगुलर शेप के क्यूब्स आते हैं, स्मॉल छोटे छोटे क्यूब्स रहते हैं उसके. इट इज हैविंग स्पाइक्स जस्ट लाइक आपने मीठा सारखंच दिसतं ते. इट लुक्स लाइक कॉमन सॉल्ट, बट डिफरेंस इज इट इज वायलेट इन कलर. इट इज वायलेट इन कलर, वो वायलेट कलर के क्रिस्टल्स रहते हैं उसके. And when it is put into the water will become, so 1 liter water is to be mixed with that 1 gram of potassium permanganate is to be put into the 1 liter of water, and it will create the solution of potassium permanganate. It will have violet color, and when you will put that violet colored liquid into the stomach, and when it will return, when the stomach will be washed, that solution will turn, because of the chemical reaction, that violet colored solution will become pink. That is the indicator. If the returning fluid is pink in color, that means the chemical reaction has taken place and the poison has been neutralized. So potassium permanganate is having indicator, it will act as an indicator itself. So 1 gram of potassium permanganate is to be mixed with 1 liter of the water, and it will give you the solution of potassium permanganate that is to be used for stomach wash. Then third group of antidotes is physiological or pharmacological antidotes. Physiological or pharmacological, the poison and antidote, they are having opposite effect to each other. So these antidotes are having exactly opposite effect to the action of poison. So examples are atropine for pilocarpine, chloroform for strychnine. I will explain with the example only. What is the action of strychnine or Nux vomica poison? It acts on spinal cord. It acts on the spinal cord and produces convulsions. So you will have to give the medicine which will relax all the muscles. So what is that medicine? Anesthetic like chloroform. So opposite action. So strychnine or Nux vomica is inducing the vomiting. So it is inducing the convulsions. So you will have to give the medicine which will, or you will have to use the antidote which will cause relaxation of all the muscles, that is anesthetic, which will induce the sleep, which will calm down the patient, that is chloroform. Another good example of opposite action is caffeine for morphine. Now you know morphine is a sedative. Morphine or opium and morphine, they are sedative. They will suppress the higher centers, or they will suppress the central nervous system. That's why you will have to give the medicines which will stimulate the nervous system, that is caffeine. What is caffeine? Coffee. Coffee पीने के बाद ऐसा fresh लगता है ना, because it stimulates the nervous system. So in case of poisons which are suppressing the nervous system, you will have to go for antidote which will stimulate the nervous system. That is exactly opposite effect, what we call it as physiological or pharmacological antidote. Then atropine for organophosphorus compound. Again, atropine is very good or life-saving drug in case of organophosphorus poisoning, and but they can cause any of these can cause undesirable effect. That's why it should be given very cautiously. We have seen in the first line of the general treatment of the poison, the antidotes or the treatment should be given rationally and in controlled doses, adequate doses, because the person will die not because of the poisoning but because of the action of the antidote. So if I give you example, if the patient of Nux vomica poisoning has been given chloroform or any anesthetic, and if large dose of the anesthetic has been given, what will happen? Patient will die because of that anesthetic. The patient will go into coma and will die because of the anesthetic. Like this, these these antidotes, the physiological antidotes, should be used very cautiously because they can cause undesirable effects. And okay, before going to universal antidote, was small topic and we will stop here. Chelating agents asked as a 2-mark question. Very commonly it is asked as a 2-mark question, and also in the oral exams. What is chelating agent? Chelating agents are antidotes which are specifically used against the heavy metals. In case of heavy metal poisoning like arsenic, mercury, lead, magnesium, so many heavy metal poisons are there. So in case of this heavy metal poisoning, these chelating agents are used, and these chelating agents, they produce the non-ionized cyclic complexes called as chelate. That's why they are called as chelating agent. So these chelating agents will react with the metal. They will have reaction with the metal, and the cyclic complex, non-iodized cyclic complex called a chelate will be created with the cations, and they will neutralize the heavy metals. So examples of chelating agents are BAL, that is British anti-levisite. It is also called as dimercaprol. It is also called as dimercaprol. So BAL, EDTA, you might have heard this name, ethylene diamine tetraacetate, that EDTA. Versinate, versinate is commonly used for arsenic poisoning. EDTA and versinate, this combination is used for mercury and lead, and N-penicillamine is used for mercury, lead, copper, these metal poisons. So these are the chelating agents. So there are four types. There are four types of the antidotes. First is mechanical or physical antidotes. Only because of the mechanical presence of the antidote, the poison will not be absorbed. So it will mechanically create the obstruction to the action of the poison. The examples are demulcents, fats, oils, milk, and banana, charcoal, and charcoal against alkaloids. Then chemical antidotes, the antidotes will react chemically with the poison and will form non-toxic compounds. Then physiological antidote, the antidote is having exactly opposite action to the action of poison. Stimulant will, in case of stimulant poisons, you will have to go for suppressants. In case of central nervous system depressant poisons, you will have to go for stimulants like that. I have given you the examples. And importantly, chelating agents. Chelating agents are mainly used for heavy metal poison. BAL, British anti-levisite or dimercaprol, EDTA, ethylene diamine tetraacetate, versinate, and sodium penicillamine. These are the examples of chelating agents. Okay, tomorrow we'll stop here. Tomorrow we will see fourth type of universal antidote. Again, it is asked as a 2 mark question. What is universal antidote, how it is prepared, and then we will go to the third step of treating the poison. So today we have seen two steps. First is removal of unabsorbed poison, and use of antidotes. One is remaining, that is universal antidote. Then we'll go to the third step of the treatment, that is elimination of absorbed poison. If the poison has already been absorbed, what treatment should be given, that we'll see in the next lecture. Okay, then any problem up to here? Have you understood everything? I hope everything is clear to you all. Yes, okay, then we'll stop here. Okay, thank you, see you, bye.